What if I told you that 1.2 million rabbits could transform one of Earth's most hostile environments into a green paradise? What if I told you this wasn't science fiction, but happening right now in the heart of China? Today, we're diving into one of the most extraordinary environmental success stories of our time. A story so incredible that when scientists first proposed it, they were laughed out of the room. To understand this miracle, we have to go back to China in the 1990s, a nation watching helplessly as its land literally disappears beneath the sand. Every single day, an area the size of Manhattan was being swallowed by expanding deserts. By the turn of the millennium, the numbers were staggering. 1.714 million square kilometers of Chinese land had already turned to desert. That's an area larger than Iran, just gone. And it was accelerating. Every year, another 10,400 square kilometers vanished under the relentless march of sand dunes. Imagine being a farmer watching your family's ancestral land that had fed generations, slowly being buried grain by grain. Imagine entire villages having to relocate because the desert was literally consuming their homes. By 2015, one-third of China's entire landmass had become desert. One-third. The country was facing an environmental catastrophe that threatened not just its economy, but the very survival of millions of people. But in the darkest hour, one man refused to accept defeat. His name was Qian Shuisun, a brilliant scientist who had literally helped put rockets in space. And in 1988, while others saw only endless sand, Qian saw something revolutionary. The solution, Qian declared in a moment that would change history, isn't just planting trees. We need to think bigger. We need to create an entire ecosystem, grasslands, farms, and animals working together as one living machine. The scientific community was skeptical. Some called it impossible. Others called it madness. How could you create life in a place where nothing could survive? But Qian's vision ignited something powerful. Chinese entrepreneurs, people willing to bet everything on an impossible dream, began pouring into these forgotten wastelands. They pledged 750 million yuan, risking fortunes on 300,000 acres of seemingly worthless sand. The race against time had begun. But here's where our story takes an unexpected turn. The answer to China's desert crisis would come from thousands of miles away in the French countryside. Meet the Rex hare, a large, short-haired rabbit that French farmers had been breeding for decades. To most people, it was just another farm animal. But to the Chinese scientists desperately searching for solutions, this rabbit would become their secret weapon. But why rabbits? Why not cattle or sheep or goats? The answer lies in a remarkable coincidence of evolution and desperation. These weren't ordinary rabbits. Rex hares thrived in dry, clean conditions, exactly what deserts provided. They were master diggers, capable of reaching deep grass roots that other animals couldn't access. And most incredibly, they could reproduce at 25 times the rate of conventional livestock. One female could produce 40 babies per year. Do the math, and you'll understand why Chinese scientists' hearts started racing. But here's what the scientists discovered that changed everything. And this is where it gets fascinating. When Rex hares dig for grass roots, they're not just feeding themselves, they're performing underground surgery on the desert. Every burrow aerates the soil. Every tunnel creates channels for water to penetrate deeper. Every dig site becomes softer, more nutrient-rich earth. But that's just the beginning. The rabbit's droppings aren't just waste, they're ecosystem fuel. Mixed with undigested seeds that pass through their systems, rabbit manure becomes nature's perfect fertilizer, specifically designed for desert conditions. The results were beyond anything scientists had predicted. Desert plants weren't just surviving, they were thriving with a 96% survival rate. In the harshest environment on Earth, life was exploding. And then came the moment that changed everything. The first rabbit colony wasn't just surviving in the desert, it was transforming it. By 2021, the impossible had become reality. What started as an experiment with a few hundred rabbits had exploded into a population of 1.2 million. The numbers tell an incredible story. Vegetation coverage had surged from less than 3% to an astounding 84.7%. Areas that had been lifeless sand for centuries were now green oases visible from space. But behind these statistics were real people whose lives had been completely transformed. Farmers who had lost everything to the desert were now earning $20,000 per year. More than many urban professionals, the rabbits weren't just ecological heroes, they were economic powerhouses. Their meat became a delicacy. Their fur transformed into luxury clothing. The plants they helped grow became feed for other livestock. An entire industry had been born from what was once considered worthless land. The world was watching, and what they saw defied everything they thought they knew about environmental restoration. In an unprecedented move, the United Nations Environment Program designated China's Desert Transformation Project as a global desert ecological economic demonstration zone. Suddenly, countries from Africa to Australia were sending delegations to study the Chinese rabbit method. Scientists who had once dismissed the project were now calling it one of the most significant environmental achievements of the 21st century. But China wasn't stopping there. They deployed drones, big data analytics, and established the Belt and Road Desert Green Economic Innovation Center. Ancient desert management was meeting cutting-edge technology. Current projections suggest that by 2025, the rabbit population will exceed 1.8 million, with corresponding exponential growth in desert restoration. The public reaction has been extraordinary. Environmental activists who had spent decades fighting seemingly hopeless battles suddenly had proof that large-scale restoration was possible. "This changes everything," wrote one climate scientist on social media. "If we can green China's deserts, we can green anywhere." Schools across China now teach the rabbit revolution as a core example of how innovation and persistence can solve seemingly impossible problems. Children who once learned about environmental destruction now learn about environmental resurrection. But perhaps the most powerful reaction has come from other developing nations facing desertification. Countries across Africa, the Middle East, and South America are now implementing their own versions of the Chinese model. The Rex hare has become more than just a solution to China's desert problem. It's become a symbol of hope for environmental restoration worldwide. So what can we learn from this extraordinary story? Perhaps it's that the solutions to our biggest problems often come from the most unexpected places. Who would have thought that a French farm rabbit would hold the key to transforming 1/3 of China's landmass? Who would have imagined that 1.2 million small animals could accomplish what decades of conventional environmental policy could not? The rabbit revolution proves that with the right combination of scientific insight, entrepreneurial courage, and natural wisdom, even our planet's most damaged ecosystems can be brought back to life. And if 1.2 million rabbits can transform a desert into an oasis, what impossible dreams might we achieve next? Subscribe for more incredible stories of human ingenuity and environmental triumph. What impossible challenge do you think we should tackle next? Let us know in the comments below.